Hey folks, John Miller here, propanebuzz.com. Got my lid on today. Those just arrived in the mail, and this is kind of me. I'm not a big pretense guy. I love wearing ball caps. I'm a small town country boy at heart who moved to the big city, but still not hayseed enough to say, "Look who's in the big town," to quote John Cougar Mellencamp from a song back in the 1980s. Let's get talking about the inventories today. First of all, though, let me remind you how appreciative I am of our sponsor, Energy Distribution Partners. And as I've mentioned to you, I've known the leaders of this company for quite some time. I got involved in wholesaling propane in 1996. And some of the leaders of Energy Distribution Partners were people who hired me into this industry in 1996, and they've been growing their business quite effectively the last several years, organically and through acquisitions, a formula driven by good old-fashioned values: hard work, trust, and integrity. And those are three big things that matter whenever you're looking to potentially sell your business. And if you're even remotely considering selling your propane retail business, give them a call. You can see their information either at the bottom of this video or also on the website, a banner that adjoined this email that you receive from me. Click on the banner. It takes you to their testimonial page where other propane retailers share their experiences with EDP. You can trust these guys. I certainly do. Let's get into the innards of this week's inventory report. As always with these videos, I have not seen this. We're looking at it together. Propane drew. Propane with an 800,000 barrel draw. Uh-oh. Not expected. Not expected at all. Let's just zip down to exports real quick. I'm going to jump out of order that I normally go to. There we go. Propane exports 1.095 million barrels per day. I'd written 3-4 weeks ago that July was looking to be a rather significant month for propane exports, and it hadn't materialized through the first half of the month. This report is for the week ending July 20th. So last week's report was still July 13th, week ending. Those exports hadn't materialized at that point in time, but they just materialized right now. Because let's go down and also look at domestic demand for propane. 1.093 million barrels per day, up from 1.029 last week. So you've got those two numbers. Now let's go look at production. I'm guessing it's probably going to be in the 1.9 range somewhere. Production propane, 1.944, which is the exact same as it was a week ago. So you have exports up about 300,000 barrels a day, almost. That's how we get to an 800,000 barrel draw. Now, up until this point, again, doing this all on the fly, this is all coming at you as it comes through my mind as we're talking. Up to this point, haven't been any concerns that I've heard amongst propane traders as it relates to inventory concerns for propane this year. I'm not saying that this report in and of itself is a reason to have concern, but just like last week's 1.7, 1.8 million barrel build, that was about 800,000 barrels below what the industry expected, was at least a reason to, let's pay attention to what happens here going forward, maybe a little closer than we thought. This right here is you better be paying attention, because right now, inventories 64.5 million barrels nationally. Last year at this time, last year at this time was 65.9. So we're 1.5 million barrels now behind last year's pace. And we got to, 79. We got to over 80 in the middle of September, maybe even 82-ish. But by the end of September, I think it was somewhere down below 80 because we had the hurricane last year, and once production and everything ramped back up, I think we had a draw at that point in time. This is something to keep our eyes on. There's no doubt about that. And seeing if any deals have been done since this video started and this information came out. Not really seeing anything done. The last deal done though today in Mont Belvieu was at 96 and a quarter. 97 had been done earlier in the morning. 73.5 Conway. Both those numbers higher than the closing average from yesterday. So something to note, and I'll write more about that in a little bit after I get a chance to look in and carve things up. As I just mentioned, you're seeing, this is the curve from yesterday, an indication of where the financial markets are trading for propane, and where the financial markets are trading is where your propane suppliers are basing their future contracting price off of. So this little column here, July, August, this is the timing. So if you go out and say you wanted to buy a July contract, you know, they're going to be stronger than that. These are just indications. But this green column, this tells you that things are moving up. And I want to bring an image in here really quick. Hadn't planned on that, so I'll pull it up and bring it in. Right there, this is the change in propane prices since July 16th. So this is, you know, the quarterly strips, but this is the month by month specific. The change in Mont Belvieu, the change in Conway. We've seen prices up over 6 cents on the front end of the curve since July 16, almost 7 cents, and then nearly 6 cents on the back end in Mont Belvieu. And we've seen even bigger changes to the back end of the Conway curve. This is more of a bearish indication. This is more of a bearish indication when things are, you know, higher price in the front than the back. This here's still leaning a little more bullish as it relates to Mont Belvieu. But these are big changes. So all of the nearly all of the price pullback that we experienced beginning 2 weeks ago when crude oil shed a great deal of value, we've lost the majority of that. It's that loss has been eroded. So I hope many of you who were looking for a dip, who were looking for an opportunity to cost average, I hope you did that, because it certainly wasn't because we weren't telling you to do that. Now that's gone. And as human nature is, when prices are moving up, and comes from 15 years experience wholesaling propane and talking with several hundred propane retailers around the country and having thousands of conversations with them through the years. This is basic sociology based upon my observations. When markets are moving up, retailers want to ask me, hey, John, do you think it's going to go back down? Because when it goes back down, I'm going to buy something. When the markets are moving down, then a dip comes. You hear people say, not all, but some, well, things are moving in the right direction. Glad it's moving down. I'm going to hold off. That's not a plan. That's like wish casting. That's wishing things are going to happen. That's not a way to run a business. You have to have a plan in place and a disciplined plan. On the way up, stair-step purchases. Up. On the way down, stair-step purchases. That's how you execute a cost averaging plan. And we can talk more about that. You can always call me at, and my phone number is on the email that I blast out. Some other things going on right now in the world that we need to know about before we wrap this up. I don't normally visit the Tehran Times, but this was one of the best articles I could find as it relates to the Iranian government leadership this week talking about threatening potentially the closing of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, let's have a little bit of a geography lesson here. The Strait of Hormuz is in the Persian Gulf. This piece right here where this little red dot is, this is a 21-mile wide strait. The country of Iran borders the entire east and most of the northern part of the Persian Gulf. This trade right here, you've got Kuwait, you've got Qatar, you've got the United Arab Emirates, you've got Saudi Arabian ports of export here. 30% of the world's crude oil flows right through this choke point that is the Strait of Hormuz. So you've got this week, you've got the Iranian government firing back against President Trump's conversations or statements to them, whatever you want to call those things, as we certainly won't get political here, just reporting the news as it is. You've got the Iranian government saying, hey, we'll just close the Strait of Hormuz if the United States government interferes with our own personal economic interests. This choke point right here could become a powder keg. Because if Iran decides they want to start closing the Strait of Hormuz with a naval blockade combined with surface-to-air missiles that they have bunkered right along this area and throughout the entire southern region of their border. Also, they could mine this area to where ships would not pass. Insurance companies would not allow that risk. That is, even the threat of that could potentially move crude oil higher. And I came across an article on Bloomberg. It's an opinion piece. Trump, Iran, and the new guns of August, a serious conflict in the Strait of Hormuz is more likely and closer than people think. This area that I highlighted. We know that Iran has detailed plans to close the strait. It would use a variety of means, including widespread mining, swarms of small, ultra-fast patrol boats, shore-based cruise missiles, manned aircraft, and diesel submarines. Iran would employ a layered offense, stationing diesels in the Arabian Sea on the other side of the strait to harass incoming merchant ships, swarming U.S. and allied warships in the narrow confines of the strait itself, and mining sections of the shipping lane. I've linked this article in the email I sent out today. It's an opinion piece, and it's certainly very hawkish, all right? I hope we don't get to that point. I really hope cooler heads prevail. Because I read another article that was on CNBC, a retired U.S. Navy admiral saying, well, we could close, if they want to block the strait, we could take that out in a matter of days. Well, yeah, the United States could wipe out the entire world and ourselves at the same time if we wanted to. Nobody has the military might that we do. But you don't use that might. You don't. Unless you want a full-scale Middle Eastern war to break out, which I don't believe anybody wants that, at least not any sane people that are not led by ideologies of paradise upon martyrdom. So this is something to watch as well. The geopolitical risk is creeping back, not creeping back into crude. It never really entirely left crude oil. We did have a little bit of a respite a few weeks ago, but it's certainly back in. But these propane numbers, very, very interesting numbers to watch. 98 cents has now been done and traded in Mont Belvieu. That was 10,000 barrels just a few moments ago. So prices are moving up following this report. These numbers, this 800,000 barrel draw, that is something that is an eye-opener. And we await next week to see if this is the beginning of a trend. If the trend began last week, continues this week, and moves into next week, that'd be 3 weeks in a row. And the trend becomes your friend as it relates to projective analysis. Or is this a one-off? We'll have to find out next week. As always, appreciate you watching.